So I think there are three main areas in which we can understand South Asia-Middle East relations currently. I think they cover trade and commerce, human capital, and security. I would say for trade and commerce, the picture is improving year by year. For India, for example, trade has improved with regards to their trade, specifically within the GCC. The UAE, for example, is India's second biggest trading partner. Even for Pakistan, trade year on year has improved. But the big problem here is that these countries themselves within South Asia function under pretty salient trade deficits. So in order to really reassess their trade relationships in the region, they have to work on, for example, their own manufacturing, getting exports higher to the region than they currently stand at, because they are importing energy at such large amounts that it sort of washes over the current export value. So that's one. The second I'd say is the human capital. Of course, we know the story about workers in the region, and the same goes for workers across South Asia. With India specifically, 4 out of 5 of the largest destinations from which they receive remittances are within the Middle East. And 50% of the remittances that they receive of that 70 billion come from the GCC. So there's a huge potential there to improve ties even more between both regions. Historically, that's been the case with regards to laborers and low-income workers. Increasingly, this is going to be venturing into the service industry and perhaps even the tech industry, as countries in the region such as Abu Dhabi seek to create a more robust tech sector. That is certainly a place where the Indian tech sector and human capital from that industry can provide a contribution. And third, as I mentioned, is the security situation, which is far more has historically been far more precarious, mainly because of the rivalry between India and Pakistan and how it plays out in the region. India of late has become a pretty significant defense spending state. They're charted amongst one of the largest spenders on arms as well, alongside Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Now, what does this mean for their ties in the region? Well, one of the biggest suppliers here is, of course, Israel. Now, it will be interesting to see how that relationship between India and Israel, which has increasingly been warming with Prime Minister Modi's visit to Israel last year, the first of any Indian Prime Minister to Israel, and how that defense partnership either puts under strain or is able to navigate past some of the existing relationships that India has in the UAE. I think for Pakistan, it's always been a very warm relationship on the security count. Pakistan has historically trained entire militaries and battalions in the GCC. There's even a Saudi battalion that is exclusively Pakistani. That relationship will increase, especially as countries such as Qatar and Saudi, who have a relatively weaker defense capacity compared to the UAE, seek to fill out that human intelligence and human capacity. And that's certainly somewhere where India and Pakistan, I think, will vie for influence. I think that in a nutshell are the sort of three broad areas where the South Asia Middle East relationship has evolved over the last few years, and some areas worth considering in the future.